Hi, everyone. I am McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas, and I am very excited today to be joined by Lars Kepler coming at you all the way from Sweden. Hello.
Hi.
It's always funny to do these introductions after we've been chatting for a few minutes, but we are excited to see those of you watching today. Let me go ahead and get the formal introduction out of the way. Lars Kepler is the pseudonym of the critically acclaimed husband and wife team Alexandra Coelho Ahndoril and Alexander Ahndoril. Their novels have sold more than 15 million copies in 40 languages. The Ahndorils were both established writers before they adopted the pen name Lars Kepler and have each published several acclaimed novels. They live in Stockholm, Sweden, and they're here today to discuss their latest in the Killer Instinct series, Lazarus. And as I was saying just a few minutes ago, boy, this book is great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As you know, I'm a fan of this series and have been reading it since The Hypnotist, so I was really glad to see a new So how are you doing?
Oh, we're fine. We are not in Houston, Texas, so we are almost in the North Pole. Very cold, very dark.
Yeah, but Christmas is coming and
it's actually my favorite time of the year.
Mine too. Yeah. Well, we all need a grisly thriller for Christmas, and we have one. All right. So I have found that we have a lot of new people who watch these events since they're at home. They don't have to travel anywhere to see them. People who maybe have not ever read your books before and aren't familiar with Joona Linna. So if you don't mind starting this off actually with a little bit about your character and this series, the Killer Instinct series, and then we'll get to this specific book later on.
Absolutely. So we write a series of books, but each book can be read as a standalone because every book is kind of one mystery being solved.
One case.
Yeah, one case. And Joona Linna is the main character. He's a detective inspector and he works together with Saga Bauer at the security police. So she is kind of the other main character. And
Well, Joona is an expert on serial killers, and he's like, we describe him as a modern Sherlock Holmes, but with a big difference. His main trait maybe is his empathy. He can identify himself with the killers. He doesn't agree, of course, but he can identify with the killer's feeling of desperation in every choice, and so he's full of understanding. I think.
He sees beyond the perpetrator as a monster in a way, and tries instead to understand them psychologically, and every case costs him something, and with Lazarus it really costs him.
So he's not like a James Bond that after every case he just wipes the dust of his tuxedo and
he goes on like nothing has happened. No, so he changes on the way. We want him to be very human.
That's where the series comes in, because if you follow the whole series, you will follow the story about Saga and Joona and their development and their lives, which is interesting to us.
Yeah, and Saga Bauer, she is kind of like a sister to Joona Linna, and she is complicated because she has this really hot temper. She has this difficulty to control herself, but she's also a very skilled police. She is also do you say sharpshooter?
Yeah,
she's very good at shooting and at boxing, and but she had this really troubled childhood, and her mother was mentally ill, and Saga is also haunted by kind of feelings that she tries to bury inside of herself, but with Lazarus, this it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, it's true. And as you mentioned, you can read these on their own, but this one in particular is a follow-up to Sandman, just because Lazarus is a little bit of a clue, but this case is definitely very personal to Jonah and to Saga. So what is happening in Lazarus?
Well, as I said, in the Sandman, if we start with the Sandman, Jonah's big enemy,
the villain the only person that Jonah Lina fears,
which have followed Jonah and cast his shadow over Jonah since even before the debut, the hypnotist. So he's been following Jonah all the way to the Sandman, where he's killed in the end. But a few books later, with Lazarus, there's a body. A man is killed in Oslo, not in Stockholm, in Oslo, Norway, and the police find the body in an apartment.
And he has been beaten to death, and it
Yes.
turns out that he is an unknown, how to say, graveyard trophy collector.
Yes.
Yeah, because when the police opens his freezer,
In the
they
kitchen,
they make this horrifying find.
Yeah, because it's full of frozen body parts and skeleton pieces. And among these skeleton pieces, they find a skull, and the forensics, they managed to identify this skull, and it's the skull of Jonah Lina's wife, who died many years ago due to a long disease. But they find her skull in this man's freezer. And just 2 days later, the German police contact
Camping site
in Germany, outside Rostock,
where a man has been hung.
A man has been hung. So when Jonah sees a crime scene, he sees also a totally insane pattern, because it looks like Ulrich Walter is still alive. So that's
it.
Kind of the setup, but we can't spoil it.
Oh, no, don't spoil it anymore. But it's interesting because at the beginning of this, they seem like vigilante crimes where someone is taking out bad people, but then it's more to it, obviously. So I wonder, do you ever think, what are we doing to poor Jonah? Can we put him through more of this? Like, do you ever think we need to cut him a break?
I know.
We meet a lot of readers who think we're,
too cruel to him.
Yeah, we should be nicer to Jonah.
But it's interesting because we don't know everything about Jonah. We have been writing these books now for a while, and there are still sides of him that are mysterious to us. Yeah. So we push him, trying to see what will you do now. And with Lazarus, I think we have pushed him very far. And
yeah, I agree. But part of it is that you are invested in the character. So if we didn't care about him, then we wouldn't care what you do. It's just, it is because you have him as a superhuman character. He is real and he's affected by these crimes, and it stays with him. So that's why we care. If he just did the James Bond thing and brushed it off, then we wouldn't care as much, Exactly. So that's great. So both of you wrote novels before writing together, writing thrillers. Do you want to tell a little bit about how you came to decide to write thrillers together?
Well, as you said, we were writers, and being a writer is fantastic, but it's the backside to it, and it's the loneliness. Because when you write a novel by yourself, it's not possible to let anyone into the story before it's done, because the magic might disappear if you tell somebody about your story. So it makes writers pretty lonely. But we love each other, and we have 3 daughters, and we thought it must be possible to write together. We admire each other's work, so it must be possible. But it wasn't that easy. We noticed it's
No, because we have 2 totally different styles, and we write totally different. But so it was actually much harder than we thought to write together.
we started to fight actually.
Yeah, we made some failed attempts. We
Yeah.
tried to write a children's book. That was our first book we tried to write together.
Right. Let's forget
Oh my
about
gosh.
Yeah, and then we tried to write a play for the theater together, because Alexandra has written a lot of drama and I have been an actress. So, but it was even worse.
Yeah.
And actually, the key for our collaboration was to create Lars Kepler, a third writer.
It sounds easy, but to us it was just the idea to create a third author and give him a new name. When he had the name, we then immediately found his style and the stories he wanted to tell, because we had never written crime fiction before.
But we love crime fiction.
We have read a lot, of course, but suddenly we got this opportunity to write crime fiction, and it's been actually wonderful since then.
And no more fighting.
Almost.
Well, it's so smart, because then it's not what would you do or what would you do, it's what would Lars do. And so you can just
egos behind it.
You don't have to protect your style or your metaphors and stuff like that. It's Lars Kepler.
Yeah, it's really incredible that it is 2 voices though, or 2 writers, because it reads as one voice. How does a writing day look like? Do you just go into the office together, or do you work on things separately and then read it? How do you actually construct your book?
Well, I'm so glad that you say that it's like one voice, because that is really our aim. And we do everything together. We share everything from the research, with everything you do in the research to the writing.
Down to the last sentence. So, well, we start, of course, with an idea. And when we have an idea, we develop it just by talking. So we discuss and discuss and discuss. And then we write small notes. Like one note for each scene, for each character. And we put it on the floor or hang it on the wall, so we can continue to discuss the plot and the characters' interactions, and dream up the story again and again until we think we are done. This is the story we want to tell. Then comes an ordinary writing day when we sit down in this room, actually, by our desk, 2 computers, so 1 computer each, side by side, and we start with one small piece of text each, and then we email each other just 1 meter after like a half an hour. So I get Alexandra's text to my computer, and I continue with her text.
And I continue with Alexandra's.
Delete things, continue the story, and then we email again, and we continue to email again and again and again until we
don't know who wrote what. So we just change text with each other. And I think when we lose control over who wrote what, that is when Lars Kepler has taken over in a way.
And that's a good feeling, because then it's impossible to protect your own writing, because you don't even know who wrote what from start.
Right.
So you just want to make the story
as
better
good
and
as
better.
possible.
Yeah, it's fascinating, because every co-author team has a different approach, and some people write a chapter and then send it to the other person for edits, but it sounds like yours is even more like smaller levels of putting it together, which is amazing. So who normally comes up with the ideas? Is that just as a team effort too? Like who thought we need to bring back this terrible, terrible villain.
It was time for him to
Yeah.
come back. So I think
So-
it's kind of organical. We just feel it.
Lazarus was it just came natural to
Well,
us.
as soon as we had finished the book before, we just knew immediately that the whole story.
Yeah, and we knew that it wasn't over with the Sandman, of course, but we waited. We wrote 2 books in between, and then it was
Other
time.
cases for Jonah, yeah.
And this is the climax of a very long story. So Lazarus is the huge climax of the Uric Water
The
story.
final battle, in a way.
Yeah. So your books are so gripping. They are tense all the way through. You're nervous about what's going to happen all the way through as a reader. There's never a lull. There's never a boring patch. So do you, as a pair, do you have an outline, or do you have a whole plan before you start writing, or do you just write and see where it goes?
No, we have the whole plot before we start to write, and it has become clearer and clearer to us that it's a good thing to, because we are 2 writers, we need to write the same book in a way. So, but then when you have the whole plot into every small detail, when we sit down by our computers and start to write, something happens that we can't control anyway. So you can have the whole plot line and everything, but when you start to write, characters come alive.
Yeah,
and we just have to follow them. And maybe they don't want to do what we have decided in the plot line. So then we just have to follow it. It's a strange thing, but it's actually the best thing in the writing process.
I ask that question a lot. I ask if your characters ever say, they talk back to you and say, no, I don't want to do that. And it's so funny because some authors say exactly what you said, that they say, nope, we're not doing that today. This is how I would act. And then other people say, I have full control of my characters. But I feel like it has to be more what you say, which is, if you know this character, even though you think you know what he's going to do, when you start writing him, he kind of comes to life in this magical thing. That's great.
And
Great.
sometimes they don't want to do what we have decided, and then we have to listen to them.
Because you plan it from the outside, you overview it from a big height. You can see down on the plot, but when you start to write, you must go into each character and be that character, and then you start to think like that character, and he don't care about this overview plot. So, of course not.
He follows
it's his life.
his or her own logic. So but we love that kind of insecurity in the writing process.
You really surprise each other too, because we have planned in one way, and when I into maybe Jonah, and he can't follow what we planned, and then I surprise Alexandra when I mail her my text, and he didn't.
We didn't decide this, but no, he didn't want to.
That's great. That's great. So we always have this question. Everyone's being shy out there. I don't know why. We have no questions from the audience yet. So if you have any questions, make sure to type them in. I will get to them in a little bit. There's no dumb question. Send them this way and we'll get to them. But people always want to know how much your involvement in the translations are. So Neil Smith, I think, does a fabulous job. But is that something that's just the publisher assigns and you trust the publisher, or do you ever try to read the English versions and say this isn't right?
We are very much involved. We have very good editors and publishers.
And a good relationship.
In the US. So we have a deep cooperation with this.
And it's a great opportunity because most languages we can't be involved in. You know, I can a bit German, we can a bit French, maybe a bit Spanish and Portuguese, but when it comes to Japanese or Chinese or
no, but still,
it's not possible.
We always encourage our translators to contact us
Yes.
if they have. So we always feel that it's a good sign when we have this conversation with the translators. But with the US, we have this profoundly good cooperation with the text.
Wonderful.
Absolutely great.
Yeah, and
So it's a good translation. We can guarantee that.
That's wonderful. No, I mean they read beautifully, but as when you're reading fiction in translation, you always wonder how close it was to the original. And some authors give the publisher 100% trust, like you have to do in the languages you don't know. But it's amazing that you are so involved. I also have to say, I wish I was so skilled in a second language as you are, because you're doing a beautiful job in this interview with very obscure terms that are not just basic conversational English. So congrats to you. I wish I was so talented. So this book has crimes set not just in Stockholm, it's in Oslo, St. Petersburg. Did you get to visit those places before lockdown and use it as a fun vacation for research?
Yeah, we have been to every places in the book. Alexandra has been to St. Petersburg a lot.
Yes.
And it also takes place in the Netherlands. Let's not spoil anything, but one of our characters tried to hide there. And the Netherlands, it's so interesting because it's totally flat. It's absolutely totally flat.
Yeah, and it's actually most of the ground is below the surface of the sea, so it's not that easy to hide. But on the other hand, you can see if somebody approach your house. So.
And also Oslo is a really nice city.
We've been there many times.
But
so we usually sometimes we go, we do the research. We go just for the research to a place. Sometimes we use places we've been to before, of course.
And we've been a lot to these places to promote our books, but we have also then combined it with research. And that is really the good thing of being a writer, because life is research in a way.
Everyone we meet might be in a book.
So when you're visiting the Netherlands, you go, oh, this would be a good place for a crime.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, so you obviously have a series with these two main characters. Do they live in your head, or do you have a Bible or like a book of all their details that you've kept track of?
Oh, that's a good idea. But so far they live in our heads.
Yeah, because they are a big part of our lives. You know,
we dream about them.
They're almost family. So we know them really well. But as Alexandra said before, they are still, mysteries to us. We're still curious, like they're very good friends, but we want to learn to know them a little bit better.
And I think that is why we still want to write about them. We want to know more.
So speaking of that, I know it's been a hard year, and some people have written so much and some people haven't written at all. Have you been writing during this time?
Yes, we have been writing.
Yes.
It's been a hard year, but since we write at home by our computers, things haven't been that different for us.
Yeah.
We were supposed to come to the USA and do a lot of promotion and everything, but we still feel we are so privileged that we can still work. This virus has cost so much for people.
Yeah, so we've been writing, and our research was already done for this new book, so it's been working. But we have also been reading a lot, more than ever, actually.
Yeah.
But we still are really sad that we can't hug our mothers.
I know, absolutely. I feel the same way. I am part-time a musician and a freelance musician. That's what my degrees are in. And all of my musician friends, live performance is not out there. My husband's a professional musician. And so I'm so fortunate to have the bookstore, and despite its own challenges that I still have it. So I think in the scheme of things, given how many people are really truly struggling, I feel very fortunate myself as well. But yes, yeah. So is the next book that will be out in the US, is it part of this series? Are we going to see Jonah again?
Yes. Oh yes, and it's translated by now. So
Yeah.
it's called The Mirror Man.
Ooh, good title.
Yeah.
I like that very much. So you write pretty dark thrillers. Do you ever scare yourselves?
Oh, we always scare ourselves.
And each other.
Yeah, and I don't think we would be able to write about these scary things if it weren't for real for us. Actually, I always have nightmares when we write books. And then the nightmares go away when Jonah Lina and Saga Bauer start to understand the case and start to solve it.
Yeah, and we know we write pretty dark stories, but we think they are still optimistic since we have Jonah and Saga, and it's kind of taking care of your own fears. We write about what scares us, but we have a solution in the books. The solution never ever occur in real life, but in books you can have this fantastic ending where you stop the perpetrator and you save the one you care about,
and you get the answers. Why did it happen, unlike in real life? So it's actually kind of a very satisfying journey, we think.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And I should mention that just because there's some on-screen violence and gore, and they're not, for the faint of heart, with the fact that they're serial killer books, they do always have that satisfying resolution. And you have plenty characters that as a reader, you very much root for. So, there are thrillers out there that might, in the descriptions, not seem as dark, but they don't have the satisfying ending, or they have main characters that you don't particularly like. And that's not true with your books. You definitely have likable characters that are up against really, really challenging things. And there's that resolution. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of these books. Sally at the store also is a big fan of these books. So I'm out of questions today. Everyone is being very shy. Normally at this point we have audience questions and people are watching with no questions. So I think we're going to go ahead and let you enjoy your dark evening in Sweden. But as I mentioned, Lazarus is out. It's highly recommended. We have copies available and would love if you'd consider ordering one from Murder by the Book. And happy holidays to you both. I wish you a wonderful new year, and it was lovely catching up with you.
Oh, it's
great to see you.
Great to see you.
Good to see you as well. Okay, I'm going to end this and we're going to say bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.